bad and the weird. You either live by the gun or you die by the sword.
Welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast. I'm Nico.
And I'm Chris.
And if I could whistle, I would be whistling in the Hall of the Mountain King to kick off the episode.
Yeah, that would be very appropriate.
So if you haven't figured it out from that hint alone, we are doing the classic 1931 M.
I had not heard of this one, but you've spoken about it a lot.
Yes.
So I was excited to finally get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, no, I am finally glad we are finally doing a German film, and as much as I would have loved to do another of Fritz Lang's movies, Die Nibelungen.
Sure.
Those are very long movies for right now. But this fit with our child murder, true crime arc.
It is very much in line with the true crime arc.
Mm-hmm.
Very in line.
Because it's partially inspired by multiple true crime events.
Yeah, in fact, maybe a little bit too close for some people's liking.
Yeah. So, the script is by Theo von Harbo and Fritz Lang, directed by Lang, starring Peter Lorre as Hans Becker, Ellen Windman as Frau Beckmann, and Inga Landgut, and a very small role as Elise Beckmann.
And this is Peter Lorre's third ever screen appearance.
Yes.
So
he doesn't have a lot of German movies. But the synopsis of this is about a hunt and trial of a child murderer.
Yeah, and it's got all the classic tropes with some. You know, I was impressed to see there's more easily followed than I was worried about.
Mm-hmm.
Since this is 1931, I don't know a ton about German cinematography at the time.
Yeah, there's a lot going on because we're at basically the tail end of the Weimar Republic before the Nazis fully took over. They were in power at this point, but it wasn't the full.
It wasn't as hard controlling from what I could tell.
But it was just on the precipice of that transition because
yes,
Fritz Lang, I think it was his next movie after this that he had to flee Germany. So Yeah. I was interested because I haven't really seen a lot of movies in this time period from Germany. So I was interested to see, like, how do you get away with the movie that could potentially be taken the wrong way? Yeah. Well, we'll get into that because it was taken different ways. At least the ending was.
Oh, yes.
But Tia had worked as a scenario writer for Die Nibelungen as well as as well as developing the screenplays into full-length novels to coincide with the release of the movies, which she would be interesting to do on her own right.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, as note, at this time, she and Lang were legally married, and she was a major contributor to many of his German movies.
Yeah. Granted, he definitely had a lot of his own research he imparted in this, which... fun, I guess. This isn't really the movie that I would want to do a ton of research for from like a writing and directing standpoint. Not as far as he went. But
for Lang, he did quite a few American flicks after fleeing Nazi Germany, including The Big Heat. But on the German side, he directed Destiny, Die Nibelungen, Metropolis, and The Testament of Dr. Mabuse. As for Lorre, like Lang, he transitioned into American cinema. Like you said, this was his only third movie. But he's mostly known for his American roles, including Dr. Einstein in Arsenic and Old Lace, Joel Cairo in The Maltese Falcon, and Ugart in Casablanca, with this being really his only German movie of note.
Yeah.
As for Windman, was also quite a few features, including Das Weierhaus, Stahlbach, Kari, Langdon Wall, in Emil and the Detectives, has done more dubbing work that, if you listen to the German dubbing, you'd probably get her from. Because she's done movies like The Shining, Superman, Charlotte's Web, Rosemary's Baby, and 101 Dalmatians.
Wow, did not know that.
Yep. And before we dive into it, our sources for today's episode include commentary by Anton Case, professor at Berkeley, and Eric Rentschler, a Harvard professor of German and author of The Ministry of Illusion, Nazi Cinema and Its Afterlife, as well as interviews with Lang by director, as well as interviews with Fritz Lang, interviews with the son of Seymour Harold Nebenzal, as well as the physical history of M. And while a lot of the commentary will state that this movie is based on the serial killer Peter Kürten, the monster, also known as the Monster of Dusseldorf.
Or the Vampire Dusseldorf.
Yep. M came out shortly after this case, but Lang has also stated that it wasn't just this. This wasn't the big inspiration. There are multiple cases around this time of lesser-known serial killers that weren't as publicized as Kürten was.
Yeah, there was a small, I say, wave of serial killer and an interest in the quote-unquote psychotic man.
Yeah.
As going around during this time. So, like, there was a lot of, like, extra news stories, a lot of public interest, a lot of public horror or outcry against it. So, you know, he definitely had plenty of sources to pull from, unfortunately.
Yeah, the old true crime question, why true crime now?
Honestly, well, we could go into why true crime now, but we're not gonna.
Yeah. But before we dive, one thing of interest is that M was originally named Murderers Among Us, and it was changed because it was, one, too close to another movie, according to Lang. But also the Nazis thought that the movie was about them.
You know, they're not technically wrong.
Yeah, and to be fair, this movie, like we said, is on that cusp of the end of the Weimar Republic, because this is just 2 years before Hitler was appointed to Chancellor.
Yeah, and from all the sources I could find, at no point did Lang say it wasn't about them.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You know, he got away with it by just changing the name, and a couple of scenes were rewritten ever so slightly to lessen the violence.
Yeah. So, Chris, before we dive into M, what are we drinking today?
We got German beer.
Bitburger.
Nice.
Bits ein Bit.
Bit. Tastes like beer.
Yes. I did forget cognac, so that's why we're doing Bitburger.
That's okay.
So, M. I like how this movie starts. It kicks off innocent enough with kids playing a game with warning of a man in black, which is, it starts off kind of playful, but then you start listening to what they're saying. It's just like this bleak game about a killer eliminating them.
And here's the thing. This accidentally aged too well. Because this movie is like a black and white grayscale from the 30s. It's all in German. I'm watching it on a teeny tiny screen at like 8:30 at night. So this starts off in, I'm sure, what is meant to be a somewhat playful, like, oh, look at the kids playing, you know, ring around the rosy sort of thing, tee-hee-hee. And I'm like, oh my god, the children are in on it.
No, just a little bit. I mean,
it's not that the children are in on it, but they end up being creepier than I think he originally wanted. And I think it ended up working into his favor, especially because immediately after, the kids are getting reprimanded by this little old lady, a full story up, being like, don't you know that real people are getting murdered?
Well, and I like that bit too, because it's very much so that kids are still going to continue singing the song, because it's like, okay, well, they're just dipshit kids.
Yeah, that's what they do.
But I think even on a tiny screen, going back to that bleakness or like that little bit of terror that starts it off, is the architecture itself is pretty plain and barren. It
very much, again, with this being a movie of the 30s, that architecture has really stuck around as very symbolic, at least for American understanding in film.
Yeah, it feels very European without the more a modernish take that we see nowadays.
It has that utilitarian, a bit void of any like over luxuries or decorations.
Yep.
It's right on that war cusp where we saw a lot of rebuilding very quickly, very cheaply, to serve just purposeful, right?
Yeah.
And, it tells that story of, like, we don't have time for silliness, we don't have time for those games right now. We are all in the middle of trying to, like, rebuild. And, it's one of those things where I don't know how much of the background he really had control in, as far as, like, did he plan, like, this was the apartment? Was this meant to be like architecture for his movie, or was it just convenient and that's what apartments looked like to him?
Just everyday architecture.
Yeah.
Well, and I think part of that too is that it's showing what class of people this is. They're not rich, they're not wealthy, just a bunch of neighborhood kids playing. And it's like, it's that point where like, okay, the kids are gonna not necessarily parent themselves, but look out for each other, where the parents can't dedicate 100% of their attention. But also at the same time, while they're doing that, the kids themselves are revealing the danger that's lurking within the city that's now become a gang to them, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Which works, too. I mean, because that's, if you think about it, somehow some games and some stories started were cautionary tales to, like, hey, in this situation, run away.
Well, and as we will explore this summer with our movie selection, some of the best horror based on true crime comes from time periods where we let children just kind of govern themselves.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, I'm just saying cinematically it works really well.
Yeah, no, very much so. And especially as we transition into Elsa Beckman with the ball, and only one really watching her is a cop and a driver, like two dangerous things that should be paying attention to. Outside of that, everyone else walking down the street doesn't pay attention to her at all. And then in comes that killer in front of like that advertisement pole, like the big city center news bulletin board kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's a space that should feel communal and safe, but it isn't.
Yeah, you feel like this should be like a public space where everyone should recognize everyone. And yet, here's this band who, from the beginning, from the get-go, even though the music in this isn't overly strong, it really relies on just one musical piece that was pre-established before this.
And that's all you need, because that's the auditory cue you need, because Fritz Lang uses a lot of off-screen sound. He uses the sound off-screen to clue you in, because like we really don't see the killer for
quite a while.
Well, not quite a while, but just like in the initial phases, we don't see his face.
No, you know who he is. You feel like you know him, but yeah, you never truly see him. Yeah,
it's his shadow that's this foreboding, looming force that is nameless at this point. Nameless and faceless.
True.
And in a very well written manner, Elise's kidnapping works because it's coming from the scene just a bit before, where her mother is saying, "Hey, as long as we hear them singing, they're fine."
Yeah, which again, like one of those like empty sort of making you feel better, because they have work to do. They're actively trying to get laundry done. They're trying to cook at the same time.
Yep.
Like, they don't have time to sit there and like watch what appears to be like 8 to 10 kids in a tiny one room home.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's this level of community where it's a village to raise the child and a village to protect the child as well.
Which, works well until one nameless, faceless man just kind of walks in and steals her, and then we get this kind of wonderful echoing sadness. It just slowly gets more and more desperate of her calling for her.
Yes, very much so. And that's the thing, like, even with this movie being a talkie, there are a lot of moments where silence used, specifically in this beginning, where the killer is buying a balloon from a blind seller, being very cautious with what he's doing, where we don't know 100% like why the blind person's important, but it continues to make him faceless.
And there's so much symbology in this movie. It's one of the reasons it's still considered the classic it is. I mean, you can break down almost every scene into, well, look how you didn't see his face here, or observe how the only person who seems to notice him is the blind leading the blind situation.
Yeah, very much. Well, yeah, I mean, it's the little things that you would overlook if you had usual sight, because it could be a dad with his child.
Oh, exactly.
And like you said, it's once we get past that, there's that slow ticking of the clock.
It's so slow.
The chimes paired with the drying linen, stuff that takes time, an empty plate, a ball rolling, and then the balloon and the power lines, knowing that we know Elise's fate. Like, we don't have to see the child murder to know the terror.
I would argue that, especially for a 30s film, where, visually, this movie does look good, especially for 30s. I like 30s. I'm not as familiar with German 30s as I am with American or British 30s. But this movie, like, it's crisp, it looks nice. I know it's been a little bit updated over the years, but it's still looking really good. And yet it has certain elements are too dark. And it's on purpose, and you can tell, like, oh, we can't quite see in the shadows. We can't quite tell what's happening.
Well, I'm glad you picked that up, because this is a continuation of the noir style that was popularized by Weimar cinema.
And you can tell. You can tell it's noir in all of the ways, minus having a good, gritty cop.
Yeah.
We just end up with general cop.
Yeah, and I think the reason I wanted to do this one quite a bit too is we do kind of forget that a lot of our weird storytelling or visual elements of cinema stem from this era of German movies because it was so isolated compared to the rest of European cinema and even American cinema. But even at this point, we're having like the downfall of German cinema as well. It's not as prolific as American films are becoming more popular.
No, absolutely. By this point, American movies are definitely becoming like they're making their way into being the world like centerpiece, which we kind of we're used to. We're just now starting to see that shift away from that.
Yeah,
and it is interesting to see how these movies still hold such a strong, like you can very clearly see where, this is leading from the noir, but it then translates to how you can see the elements of a good true crime horror that are all based here. You can see where other movies would have pulled from this, how this would be a good blueprint, and yet, somehow, these movies just aren't as talked about or distributed lightly here. Well, you have to be in the I must know the academics of it. And I would argue that this movie doesn't need that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there because while we are watching a restored version, this is the Criterion version, so they've cleaned up a lot of it.
They have.
I think when you bring that up is this movie is getting damn near 100 years old. Yeah. And we still see the same stuff happening even in our modern society. Thousands of miles away.
Yes.
100 years later. The big thing is the turning of the tragedy into publicity and the paper sales as the killer writes a letter, one showing that the police aren't really doing their job good enough.
Yeah.
But also like this publication in the public square along with the ads and the activity and in comparison to the rooms we've seen before, the rooms that we'll see before and after, whereas like the other thing with this that I didn't realize is because my immediate thought is like, okay, this is the early start of the talk of the town encompassing what we see in the 24-hour news cycles now.
Sure.
But I learned in our academic research in this that some newspapers at the time were publishing 3 papers a day, so like we've already been working towards this 24-hour news cycle. Television and social media has made it so much easier rather than this where it's just posted up on a public forum.
It feels easier today, but I would argue that maybe less so, because not only you're right, newspapers were printed 3 times a day, but you also usually had a small child standing outside screaming the headlines at you all day. Radio at this point, we didn't have as strong a news presence as like what we are used to today. However, it was still regular for your show to be interrupted with your whatever they felt like. It could be a breaking national importance. It could be someone down the road has an important thing to say.
Yeah.
The amount people like to know, and people will always have liked to know. The formality in which that we talk to each other has changed. And I would argue that the way that we think about the fear, we think about these things being modern problems, like, oh my gosh, this serial killer, no one's ever seen something like this before. And yet, I'm watching this movie from 1931, and it's almost parallel to so many stories in the 70s, the 80s, even the 90s. Where...
Hell, across waters, too. I mean, hell, the one big thing with, like, the discomfort in society with the older men discussing and then beginning to spread rumors of, like, oh, I bet he's the killer. I saw him do X, Y, and Z. We see this, again, like what we talked about a couple weeks ago, in Memories of Murder.
Oh, exactly. The exact same situation happening of, well, that guy's always been a little off. Or, oh, we don't really know him.
Yes.
So he must be him.
Yeah, it goes back to building the dangers of civilians taking actions into their own hands due to their frustration with police and society.
But again, this movie shows how in many ways it is a blueprint for what later becomes summer slashers and horrors, and that the people feel like they have to be the ones to take charge, because the police force, what little we see in this movie, they don't do much. They have a few rudimentary techniques. I think they talk about fingerprinting, which would have been pretty new at the time for 1930s.
New, but they still had thousands of fingerprints.
I'm not saying they didn't, but the technique in which they were using to compare was still super old and outdated.
Yeah, at the time, you didn't have anything other than a magnifying glass and looking at 2 pieces of paper.
It becomes outdated so fast that even Mark Twain himself wrote an entire book where this entire plot of it was that this guy is really good at fingerprinting, and yet it's a flawed technique and he gets stuff wrong. And that wasn't that long afterwards.
Interesting.
So, we know that it works, but the way that we're looking for it fails so quickly that, they also talk about handwriting analysis, which sticks around for almost 60 years before we realize that that's some bullshit, unfortunately.
To a point. There's some stuff that you can
there's some there's some base stuff, but the man in this movie especially is really thrown for a loop drawing with, I believe, a crayon. It's
like
chunky.
A colored pencil of some kind.
It's... We're not doing great here. This isn't helping.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good thing to talk about, is just how hard it really would have been to do this kind of investigation just back in the day, because it is a lot of he said, she said stuff. The compounding difficulties with the hysteria and the false leads. Look at, in comparison, going back to Hitchcock a little bit, he has a movie from, I think, the late 20s called The Lodger that has a lot of similarities to this movie as well.
Well, and it kind of starts to show that first inklings of trends of wanting and hoping the police to have some perfect way to find the killer. So, in this movie, in up until the 40s, the fingerprinting, the analysis on the handwriting or tire or footprint tracks. And then we learn, that's not super great. So then we change our hopes to DNA evidence, and then we change our hopes to more advanced forensic, and we kind of just keep chasing that throughout our movies.
And not just that, too. It's the way they humanize the police force in this a little bit, too.
I do like that.
Where we're having this growing unease with the public. On the other side, we're getting the police explanation of hey, we're following X, Y, and Z lead. We've looked at this person. Well, we've looked at this lead, but that leads us to here's a radius of where this could have happened. Here's where this radius, and it's eventually getting them outside of the city where
it could be anyone.
Yeah,
at that point.
Exactly, and that's the point to show, is that at this point, until you have solid evidence, anyone and everyone is a suspect. Well, let's say any man is the suspect.
In this movie, yes. We're focused in here. This is the 30s. Let's not get too crazy and advanced just yet. But that is something that's so interesting, that this movie does such a good job of taking these, what are, at this point in history, the root of a crime horror, right? This idea that it could be anybody. It's a child, the most innocent person. We don't know what he looks like. He's taunting us. The police are almost powerless against him. These are all just kind of the basic levels of horror. And yet this movie still does a great job of keeping that intensity.
Well, I think a big part of that is he has these crescendos of chaos and uncertainty.
Yes.
And then he pairs it with these silent scenes of especially after we get this build up, the silence that falls on the city and the tense and uncertain times, kind of militarily combing the streets. Even the stairs down to the bar that we get to encapsulate the pressure from just everything that's going on. And also just the frustrations of everyone could be a suspect, so they're going to the usual suspects, but at the same time, the cops feel a little bit just as slimy as the criminals will see, because they're using this crackdown as a way to also pursue other tasks to clean up the streets. And that's the thing, is we have the counter of the barkeep saying, hey, we're all humans, just treat us as human and we'll comply, instead of being corralled around like animals.
And this is something that I found interesting that Lang incorporated. Part of this, decision to add the kind of, well, if we can't find the one bad guy, we'll take care of some other scum while we're at it. Part of that came from his decision to spend time in his researching by going to mental institutions and talking to children killers. And he found that more than one of them got caught on not even the crime that they, people knew them for.
Yeah.
A lot of just, smaller, pettier stuff that they finally did get cracked down on. And he found that very interesting, to the point where he's like, Well, yeah, I mean, if we're going to be searching the whole town, we might as well, get the one guy for jaywalking at the same time.
Yeah, it's gonna, in their mind, it's gonna be the lowlifes, the usual suspects, kind of like what we saw in Memories of Murder.
Exactly.
Where they're tackling the outliers of society. Not necessarily the dregs, but like the lower class of people who don't conform to the norms.
Or even just the ones that are quote-unquote foreign to them.
Yeah.
People who don't eat at the same place as they do. They don't live in the same neighborhood. They live, outside the city or in the slums.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie does such a good job of compounding all of that, doing so with minimal stuff happening.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is that minimalism that changes this movie from having what I think now a lot of movies stress as like the thrill or the tension. This movie, because it is lacking in a lot of stuff, like sets are bare bones, streets have like just people in them and maybe the posters that we need to see, and then there's nothing else.
Oh, Chris, you would love Die Nibelungen.
I know. And I think because this movie is so bare bones in its visuals and in its music, it changes it from attention to just anxiety.
Yes.
And that is something that I don't think modern movies have really captured in the same way.
No, and I think part of it too is because a lot of these movies, there is one that I think has a lot of influence from this. And granted, I haven't done research on it, so I can't say whether it has or not, but Prisoners. Because a lot of times when we have these movies, it focuses on one aspect or the other, either the victims or the cops. So this has a lot of in between. It has really three groups of people going together if we include the killer as his own character.
Which I think we should.
Yeah. No, three. Yeah, let's say it has three elements. It's got the cops, it's got the criminal underworld, and it's got the killer.
And it is interesting that this movie, despite technically having a main character, the main character being the killer, we don't follow them in the same way a modern movie would.
No.
We're not attached to any one or two cops. We're not even, really sure of the names of everyone in this movie. And that's okay, because again, you are watching from this outside perspective, almost like you're reading a magazine or a newspaper clipping about the story. Where you hear about, the criminal group, they're all getting together because if the cops aren't going to handle this, they will.
Well, and see, going to the criminal group, that's what I think is interesting with them, too, is that it initially feels like they're getting to set up a sting, because while the cops are causing chaos, they're going to slip in and do something while the cops are distracted, but it turns in that they only care because of this money. And while we're seeing the trickle down of how one dead girl can influence an entire society, the gangsters only really care about this because it's hitting into their profits. They're not going to be able to maintain their rackets.
And isn't that the interesting thing?
Exactly.
Because this movie has three characters, and I would argue only one of them actually cares about the children, and it's the one killing the children.
Yeah. Yeah, or the mom at the end.
But I think that's meant to be the shock of this movie, is that, the people who are trying to act the most on it, one's doing it for money, one's doing it for power and to,
just one less thing to worry about.
Yeah, it's just a job. It's not necessarily, a caring, if that makes sense. And then, even the murderer has kind of this standoffishness where he doesn't really seem interested in any of the victims. They seem opportunistic at best.
They are, 100%. But even when we talk about, how everything how no one really cares, these blending of the meetings between the cops and the criminals work so well, because at some points I kind of lose track of which meeting we're in, forgetting that he's cross-cutting between all of them. In a way, it makes it feel a bit like the ending of Animal Farm a little bit, where
you can't quite tell who's who.
Exactly.
And that right there is why the Nazis were not a fan of this movie, because as a reminder, they're not truly in power. However, they do hold most of the cop or authoritative run at this time. And this movie, they don't technically say that the police are Nazis, but if you lived in Germany at this time, you would assume that that's who the cops are. And now the cops are kind of the same as the criminal organization. That's not great.
Yeah, to a point, too.
Yeah.
And what we'll get into, the trial at the Kangaroo Court trial is the one that really pushes it.
It does. That is where the worst. But I can see why, and I'm impressed that he managed to get as much of this movie released under supervision as he did. I think if he'd waited a few more years, it wouldn't have happened.
A few more years and he wouldn't have been in Germany.
No.
But I also like there's elements in this movie that we see continuations into like modern day, especially with like this network of beggar informers. Like,
oh, and doesn't that then just tie into all of the Victorian crime movies in the future?
Hell, John Wick has an entire assassination corps that's beggar.
Sherlock Holmes famously has a bunch of beggar children that just tell him all the dirt on the street.
Yeah, and times don't change that much.
No. And like even more modern ones, there's so many, and usually I think of it in like the TV shows that run for a really long time, where, oh, I gotta go to talk to my informant, and it's like some drug ring where they were undercover once and they still are in touch. Like we still see this trend, just not quite in the same way. And yet, this movie, I couldn't find a bunch of evidence of anyone saying directly, like, M is my source for movies. But you can see where a lot of this kind of just keeps repeating itself. Yeah,
I mean, it's like us growing up on Tim Burton and like, oh, he's so unique. And then granted, I hadn't done any research. I was just getting back into more movies. But, like, the first time I see The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and I'm like, there is the immediate influence from this.
Yes. And it's one of those things where will anyone clearly say, like, oh, M is my favorite, traditional horror/chiller movie? No, probably not.
No.
But...
and partially because I think it falls into this... It's not really a clear line of... It's not a pure procedural crime movie.
No, it's not.
But it's that proto-ness to it that is it's that in-between genre.
And that's the thing, it's got a little bit of everything. And I would say it has a little bit of everything from its own time as well. There's so much being trying to, like, cram into this movie. We've got the underworld group that are now starting to, like, play cops and robbers amongst themselves. We've got a cop group that aren't really doing their job.
No.
Some of them don't seem to want to do their job.
No, and I mean, it's everyone's suspicious of everyone. I mean, hell, fathers are even under suspicion of just taking their kid to school.
Yes.
But I also like where this movie sits as well, and I'm glad we chose this one as a little bit of a companion piece to Memories of Murder, because I didn't know a lot about Memories of Murder before starting that one.
Okay.
Where, like, this one, their only clues are an old wooden table, a red pencil, and the type of paper.
Yes.
But interesting enough, at this time in the 1930s, Germany had over 1 million fingerprints on file. But this was, like Memories of Murder, we were transitioning to a point in Germans' modernization of police work. Much like we see in the cops with Memories of Murder.
No, very parallel.
But the cop Lumen is actually based off Ernst Genhardt, who helped solve the children murders of Dusseldorf and modernize the homicide division, or the M division, something that we wouldn't have known about unless we had listened to the commentaries on this movie, that while Fritz Lang did change the name, M worked so well because now it's like, okay, well, at the time, that ties into some cultural aspects that are changing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And then something else that was interesting is even though not too long after the fingerprinting technique was developed, we learned that it has its flaws, it was good enough that not only was it almost immediately used for recognition in the criminal system and the military system, but this is about the time period when not just Germany, but US, I think a bunch of other countries, all agreed that what if we just started fingerprinting everybody?
Yeah.
And it starts with kids in school.
Yeah.
Because how else are you going to identify you if you get blown up in the war?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's some of the horrors that we see continuation is because we're still not, I mean, we're outside of World War I, at the edge of World War II, but at the time, no one was expecting World War II to happen.
No, but here, this is like such an interesting, like, again, history keeps looping itself back around, because after this, people started saying, well, it'd be nice to have a record of my family, let's go ahead and have IDs for even the kids. We see that, it drops off again after everyone's done worrying about the end of the world, and then murder starts to be a problem again, and disappearances and kidnapping, and so it resurges across the world as, like, a pretty standard thing to do of, well, if we have your fingerprint and you get kidnapped, now we kind of know what to go off of.
Yeah. And, I mean, the other thing with that, too, is that these investigation techniques make it feel real, where it's not like some stupid, crazy CGI, or not CGI, CSI,
yes.
Enhance. Which at the time, and see, here's the thing. We look back on this, and it's like, okay, all these decisions they're doing make sense for that time era.
Exactly.
We go back and watch CSI, and they do all that super high-end technology stuff. We're like, or yes, it works as a nice convenience for the plot. We're looking at it now like, this is really dumb technologically. Like, that's not how any of this works.
That's not how any of that works. But that's, okay, that is something that I think this movie is so smart about. We talked about how there's not really one person per group we follow. And I think by having the cops be just kind of a conglomerate, we have, like, our one, but he kind of blends in as a group. He's the leader of a unit. He's not, like, the one man running this whole thing.
Same with the criminal underground. The only way we have to really distinguish him from the rest of his lackeys is the cane.
And even then, again, like, they're not necessarily pointing and everyone going. They're all, you know, uniformly moving together through this. And I think by having that as, like, a conglomerate all doing stuff, as opposed to one guy interrogating, there's so much more room for forgiveness.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know? Where it's like, oh, how could so-and-so not know that? You're supposed to be this genius mastermind. Well, no, you're just the leader of a gang of 8 guys.
Yeah. Their own hot dog squad.
They are their own hot dog squad.
Or the
Bratwurst squad.
Yeah, the Bratwurst squad. Or the Weisswurst squad.
Yeah, well, you know, the mustard squad.
Blutwurst squad. So many sausages out there.
Especially in Germany.
Yes. But I like that while we've built up this chaos, laying its transitions into the killer again.
Yes.
With the knives in the window being turned in the reflection of the child is such a cool shot because it works as like a little bit of double targets where one, I'm sure people in the U.S. will find this weird, but this is how knife shops display their knives.
Okay, go on.
But the way it works with him, our killer M looking at this, and then cutting to the kid.
Yes.
It works as this double parallel of, like, how in Psycho we have the one mirror reflecting 2 personalities.
Sure.
We have the outward appearance of our killer, and then we have the reflection of what his actual focus is.
That, you know, that is true. And this is something that I do like that this movie puts any effort into, is I talked about how this movie's pretty empty set-wise. The exception is the window shop displays. There's one at the beginning where there's, like, toys for kids, and you think, oh, he's gonna pick someone from the toy group. And he moves on and, like, keeps going. And then we see another window display of the knife collection. Yep. And it's the only other thing in this, like, town that seems to have any busyness to it.
Very much so. And, like, the way he builds up the tension here is because, yeah, we saw earlier where they're explaining who the killer must have been, and he's like, oh, he must be a sociopath. And while he's practicing making faces of how he should smile and appear.
Yes.
The reason this builds up is, like, while we've seen his face once, at that point we don't know that he's the killer.
True.
He's just some random person that we can just assume is the killer.
But we don't technically know.
Until we start hearing him whistle.
Yes.
And that tension and that build up to that potential another victim saved by her mother just happening to be around the corner.
Yes.
Works so well because it's like, oh shit, he was just a steps away from doing something. And then that transition to him scratching his hands to try and quell that obvious mental itch that he has going on, that there's something going on about this guy that we don't like, that makes him uncomfortable. Even like when he's going to have a drink to, like, cool himself down, have a quick think, he still can't quell it. He's back on the hunt to build up the danger as the public and the cops kind of start to close in, but they're not, like, fully there just yet.
Because, again, we now know who it is. And this is where this movie does, again, something that would become kind of a modern movie standard trope of, well, the audience knows, but the heroes don't.
Yeah.
And so they pass each other in the street, and you think, oh, if only you knew.
Yeah, it's classic Hitchcock bomb under the table theory. Give the audience enough information to know that, hey, there's another murder that's going to take place. while you guys aren't figuring shit out.
And I like how this one goes about, well, now that you know who it is, let's amp up how he plays, how the actor portrays him, to add another level of like, well, how could we have missed that that's not him? Because now he clearly looks crazy.
Yeah.
The actor goes out of his way to like go through facial expressions that him and the director thought were too much or too little. He goes out of his way to mimic some people that the director met in the mental institution, which I probably was not killers. I think these were probably people with like tics and things, but you know, it's the 30s.
Yeah. There's a little bit of overacting, so...
There is, but it's done enough where now the audience is like, well, how has anyone mistaken any of these normal guys when it's so clearly this guy who's acting so strange?
You gotta remember, Chris, this is also Fritz Lang's first talkie movie,
but it's all smart, because it's it's letting the audience feel an anxiety.
Yes. And it's because of the sound he uses, too, where the movie's silent.
Yes.
And he brings in the Hall of the Mountain King. That leads to his downfall. It's the little details that could mean a lot that everyone else is overlooking. Like, they found the candy, they found the cigarettes, whatever.
Yep.
But it's the blind beggar, someone who usually is ignored, ends up being the one that's like, hey, this is a detail that I picked up on. This girl died. I heard something similar. This guy's also with another kid buying a balloon. Another
balloon from a guy who technically should never have been able to recognize anything.
Yes.
Which is such like, again, it's one of those tropes that comes back around and around and around in cinema. And this is a good example of it.
Because it's the silence. Because after he's revealed that he's the killer and there's the hunt that's going on. And the beggar is chasing him down while he's completely oblivious. It's that silence that Lang uses to really push it, especially like when they plant the M on him.
Yes, and this is such a clever way to do it.
Oh, 100%. And that's why, like, I appreciate it, because the budget of this silence is used so perfectly, because while we say it's a talkie,
there's very little talking.
One thing of note, Lang was against making a talkie to begin with, but...
Too bad, he's very good at it.
He uses the budget in the scenes where they couldn't afford sound cameras, and so that's roughly a third of this movie is a silent movie, and where he strategically puts every single scene of that is something that's used to build the tension, because while we're on the hunt of like, okay, he has the M on his back, he still has his kid with him, it's these little bits of like, okay, well, we know he's screwed because the cops have found where his house is at.
Yes.
The beggars and the criminals are going to eventually come in on him because they've marked him.
Yep.
And I do like the little bits of details, like, well, one of the beggars picking up a butt of a cigarette to have a quick smoke.
Yes.
It makes it feel natural, like they're going about their day to make him feel like he wouldn't be paying attention to them. Oh, it's just a homeless guy who picked up a cigarette butt.
Exactly. This is also something that is a slight deviation from how a lot of, like, quick or more generic movies, especially American movies in the 30s, tended to be. They used a lot of their sound budget for big, exciting moments. So that's kind of the trope we get with the single scream of, oh no, he's got me!
Yeah.
And Lang chooses to not do that and instead focus on important dialogue that he feels has to be included, or the one tune of the movie, the whistling. And the rest he decides to go with just depicting visually, not even with cue cards, which was a lot of, especially American movies, way around, like, oh man, we're out of budget, we'll just throw a cue card up. Everyone's used to them, no big deal. Lang doesn't do that, and no. I appreciate it, because again, it keeps this movie much easier to watch almost 100 years later.
Oh, very much so, and I think part of it is because it's a relatable story, and it's the strategic use of everything. I mean, hell, just the reveal of the M in the mirror is like, oh, this is like, because he even doesn't notice it's the little girl who says, "Hey, you've got something on your shoulder," and just the look over, and it's just that, oh shit, of like someone's caught on, and then he's just realizing, hearing the whistles from all directions along the streets that are happening.
He is trapped.
Yeah, it's happening off screen. I love that. Like, there's this trying to get in between buildings and stuff, and then like the solid use of like Where did he go when a car passes in front of him?
Yes.
I don't know.
Smart.
I don't know if this is the first time that's been used in cinematic history, but we see it happen so often in like horror movies that are supposed to be unsettling of like, oh, the car drives in front of the person and that person's mysteriously gone. It works so well because it's just like, okay, we know that everyone's coming down on him and then he just disappears. Exactly.
No, this is definitely not the first time that trope is used. In fact, I think the first time I can picture it being used is actually in a comedy flicks, where it's more of like a magic sleight of hand of like, oh my gosh, where'd he go? And then he pops up a moment later.
Yeah, or it's like not Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton where they grabbed onto the back of the truck.
They were very good at it, yes.
Yeah.
So, not the first, but I do think that this is definitely showing where a trend starts to really take hold, where it moves away from movie sleight of hand or magic, or even just a comedy gag of like, oh, there he is, he's only a few steps away.
Yeah.
Where this one truly, because of, again, that intensity that this movie continues to hold, him disappearing feels like such a letdown.
A little bit, because that's the thing is like...
He was so close to getting him.
So close, but at the same time, it's used to be like, okay, these people don't know where he's at, but then him cutting to these abandoned office buildings or these storage facilities in the office where he's hiding, and he's not hiding well at all, but it is a good building of tension that he is a trapped rat. I mean...
Yes, he has nowhere else to go, despite getting away the one time.
And on top of that, it's used to put the crooks at odds with the cops, because justice in their own hands is like, they're doing it in their own way that's not with the law. And we will eventually get to our court system and whether or not that is also fair. Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But I like that there's this building of the maze, is that while the cops are cracking down a little bit more, it's the criminals who are finding it all. Yes, they're the only ones that seem to be making progress. Exactly. And, I mean, the whole thing with, he's found because they hear him. Like, he's a rat in the wall, like, he is trying to scrape away. He's using a little pocket knife to try and get through a door. Yes, exactly. Like, it is such a good build of his desperation on top of everyone else's. Yes. And in a way, in a weird way, it humanizes him to the point where... Because we were starting to distance ourselves for a second there. He was feeling almost too unstoppable. Yeah, but we want him to be caught. And this absolutely. Being trapped like a rat is like... How is he going to get away with this? He disappeared with the car. That seemed like magic. How is he going to magic his way out of this one? There is a sense of justice in especially 30s and 40s crime movies that I crave. Because there's a tendency in more modern movies to make the villain either so monstrous that no justice could possibly like cover the crimes that they've done. Yeah. Or humanize them to the point where you're like, well, man, he didn't mean it. Man, that's a tough one, 30s and 40s movies have very little sympathy for our villains, usually. Yeah. And there is a strong, correlation to, well, the bad guy has to be caught and some form of justice must happen. Whether or not it's by court or he flings himself off a bridge on fire, the audience doesn't care, but they crave a finality. Yeah, I honestly, if you haven't seen it yet, Chris... Prisoners. Yeah, it's 100% should be on your list to watch. It would have been a good comparison to this one. Yeah. Because it is very vigilante, and it also that's the thing, is that one has a lot of the elements from this one. It's got a cop that you feel for. It's got the parents you feel for. It's got a little bit from the killer's side of things. Like, it's got a little bit of everything that makes him such a great movie. And boy, is it, because we're about to get to some of the most convincing parts of this movie to me. Yeah. Well, okay, so here's the thing. I love looking back at some of these older crime movies and how limited they were, like especially with this alarm system. Yes. Very slow response because... So slow. Well, because everything is manual. Yep. And then like all we see afterwards is just the carnage of the wake of these criminals. Yeah. And while they do catch our killer... They do manage to get him. I like that in their own chaotic way, they mess up. They do. Because... They leave one man to be found by the cops.
Whoopsie.
And I guess putting a light in a suspect's face is a tried and true technique that we haven't left at all in modern crime movies.
No, we love shining flashlights on people.
I like that they're really pressing this criminal. That
they really think he's got all the answers.
Well, they don't think he has all the answers. It's like when you talk, it's how you talked about earlier of them picking up, or more so, them finding out, hey, he's connected to something else.
Exactly.
Because they picked him up for something completely different, because they're thinking this is a heist job, which, honestly, good crime to hide that they're there for something else.
Yes.
But it's like when he goes to the murder investigation homicidal squad, it's just like, oh shit, this is our breaking point. Like, this is our way into it. I like that he works in this little bit of comedy of like the cop being like, oh, okay, I need to calm myself down, I need to wash my face. He's like, he has that little bit of slapstickiness where he's like almost lets it pass through of like what he's actually there, what he's trying to get out of this guy, instead of like, he's like, hey, just an FYI, we could put you to a death row for this. I mean, if you don't tell us, we'll put you in prison for, keeping cop out from being able to do his job. Yeah, whoever you were with killed that security guard, even though that's a bold-faced lie. Yeah.
Speaking of criminals in this movie, about 25 cast members, most of whom play the criminals in this movie, were real criminals.
Shocking.
Lang hired them because he thought no one could possibly play a criminal better than a criminal.
Fair. I mean, I recently learned in American History X, real neo-Nazis were in the scenes.
Sure were.
Because who else can play a neo-Nazi other than a neo-Nazi?
Yeah. Well, Lang should have seen this coming, because about 25 of the people that he hired, who were criminals, were arrested while he was making this movie.
Amazing.
Not for this movie or anything, for outside crimes.
Shocking. But I also find it interesting how we take this justice that clearly we agree that this killer needs to be...
We have to catch him.
At least put behind bars.
Yes, he cannot keep terrorizing the community.
But the way he's tried in the basement, without any real representation, let's be honest.
No, not really.
They just kind of threw some lawyer down there and he's like, hey, just... Say you kind of represented him.
Yeah, truly.
Very similar, again, to Memories of Murder.
Yes, it really is.
But it's like that, the big moment with him realizing he's screwed, when they take the blind balloon seller, and he's like, I recognize his whistle. It's that clear evidence where he's like, yeah, there's no way out of this. Is like, they have me dead to rights. Like, I cannot get out of this. And that's the thing, is... the tension in this scene is we know he's a dead man.
We do.
But also, it's a reflection on his satisfaction with the system that they can't rely on the cops. They have to take it into their own hands. Even to the point of one of his accusators, the judge, the jury, the executioner, the head criminal, is hiding from manslaughter charges. It's like to the point of like he's justifying his own stuff. And that goes to their crookedness of like, they might be murderers, killers, and thieves.
But they're not child murder, killers, and thieves.
Well, it's not just that. They're doing something that's not affecting the rest of society. This guy is doing something that's affecting their business. So by that point, it's not even he's not even on trial for the murders of the children. He's more on trial for disrupting their business practices.
That's true. And this is where M gets very philosophical. Not that the rest of it couldn't be, analyzed for all of that. But this is where Lang's interest in real-life criminals really shines. Because he spends enough time now with our killer talking about how, I can't help it. These guys can choose whether or not they want to rob people or steal. I can't choose that. So is this really fair? And then it goes on to kind of exponentially talk about, like, well, it's not fair that you've taken something that can never be replaced. The thieves, we could replace that stuff. You've taken a child. Yeah. But at the same time, like, his judge has murdered people. It is a very interesting... Lang makes very interesting cases of both sides of him trying to explain from all 3 points of view why he is both justified and condemned. Yes. And at no point does he manage to weasel out? Like, everyone, including the audience, is very strongly on the side of what ends up being the fourth, like, group to this, and that's the mothers, who we've seen at the beginning, are gone for the rest of this movie because they're busy doing mom stuff, I guess. And now they're back to show, like, we are the only ones who have truly cared.
Yeah. Well, in a way, too, it ends up being this lingering scar from World War One, where there's things that he says in his trial.
Yes.
Where he brings up, like, but I can't help it. Where he's haunted by himself, where, like, he knows it's bad, but he just can't compel himself. And there's a line it says, bring something up about, like, the ghosts of the mothers and children of, like, stuff he saw in World War One, which maybe in a way that while he can't...
It haunts him in a sense.
Yeah, it haunts him in a way that because his motives are never, like, fully explained. It's something to do with World War One, but in a way with World War Two approaching and the Nazis taking power or gaining power, it's this kind of sparing the innocents from the horrors that are to come.
True.
Is it a good reason? No.
No, but that is something that this movie works to try and have a bit of a back and forth, but it sets itself up so hard for you to have a predisposed idea of what the justice should be here. Because we start this movie with the mothers and the children, and we are going to end this movie with the mothers missing their children.
Yes.
So there is room to hear his pleas of, well, I can't help it, give me some form of mercy. There is some room to think about the criminals and how, well, we're not like him. We're not that depraved.
And that's a good point in the question of whether this movie was pro-death penalty or not.
Yes.
Is what actions make you less than a human, that you don't deserve the fair trial of the laws of the realm.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. And there's also this scene that, again, the Nazis weren't crazy about. They didn't love how this ended.
We'll get into that at the end, because the movie, surprise, surprise, it's from the 30s, so there's some morality that they have to follow.
There is.
Where
we have to have some conclusion. The villain must fall.
I mean, the villain's gonna fall regardless, because it's the cops that come in and save him from the kangaroo court lynching. Yes,
but will he be saved at all, because they essentially have enough evidence on him now?
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be it was either the death penalty right then and there, or be locked up for life.
Yes.
And that's like, you bring it back, it's only the women and the mothers who really care, because it's that ending lines of, like, regardless of what you do, she says, this will not bring back our children. One has to keep a closer watch over the children. All of you. So it's not just...
It is more of a sentence of everyone and less of just himself.
Yeah, the social necessities of being able to observe and take care of the community, rather than just like, oh, it's only your duty if you're tied to the child.
Exactly. Which, a fantastic ending. Again, there is a justice to these old movies. I love it.
Very much so. And I think it still leaves that question of, while this man is an abhorrent person...
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Is he worse than the ones that caught him, though?
Exactly.
Yeah, where's the line?
Or the ones who were unable to do anything in the first place.
And, like he says, he claims to not be able to help himself. Is that enough to kill a man, or is there another option to somehow fix him?
Yeah, I mean, hell, if it shows anything, this movie was controversial when it came out. It wasn't popular.
No, it wasn't.
And there were different thoughts about the movie. Like, initially, specifically, Goebbels and the Nazis saw this as a pro-death penalty movie. And they thought it, like... I mean, and I guess the death penalty was a rare thing during the Weimar Republic.
Sure.
And Goebbels praised the movie initially, but ultimately banned it because Langer left Germany. So,
it does. Because again, he did say, like, no, it's not about you guys. Bye.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of those things where it's like, the movie is not just a reflection of the times, but it's the reflection of different morals and questions.
Sure.
That's, still hold up today.
Well, and that is something that during the 30s in Germany, there was an interest in a horror way. Not in the way that we currently have true crime movies, where it is a fascination from the outside looking in, as opposed to what they saw it as a reflection of what is currently happening. Because not only was, Vampire Dusseldorf, Peter Curtin, clearly an inspiration, but there was also Gorbman and Kirkin and Duncan, can't remember his full last name.
A bunch of other serial killers who have been left to the wayside because, one, we don't have as much information like Curtin does.
No, well, and truthfully, selfishly, America is interested in American serial killers. Yeah. As we have learned. And so this wasn't necessarily taken as a, in the way the Nazis said of, oh, well, it's a call for, justice, so I can see some praise in it. No, most of the criticisms of the day that I could find, the average person thought this was a criticism of their own society at the moment. Yeah, well, and on top of that, think about, what the Nazis are trying to do with this propagandically of, sure. Okay, yes, you can take justice into your own hands like they did with, the private SS and the Gestapo. Yes. And then, but you can take it into your hands as long as by the end it goes through the court system. Yes. Yes, they're justified in doing this, but ultimately the courts are the ones to decide. Even though they are guilty, they deserve it. How whichever gets their hands on them first. From the beginning, the Nazis were very good at playing the "but think of the children" card. Yeah, and this movie does make you think of the children, the dead children. Yeah, look, if we keep these evil people on the streets, but who are the evil people? If this killer is supposed to represent anyone and everyone... And then that is the genius of Lang, and why he definitely ran away, is because I do think the entire purpose of M is that anyone could be the killer. It wasn't necessarily this one. He did a movie shortly after this called The Testament of Dr. Marabuse, which is the reason he left. I did actually watch recently, finishing up my Criterion backlog. But that was the reason he left, is because that one was more heavy-handed. No, that one is I agree, a direct slap in the face. Yeah. But this one, if they were watching the first half, I think they would have gotten the message a little bit better. Yeah. It's like they don't realize they're trying to be part of it, but don't realize that they're the joke. Exactly. Yeah. So what? I'm very curious. This is your first real German movie. I don't think we've done a couple, a sprinkle of other German films, but not much. We haven't. As for our podcast, this is our first German movie. I've been trying to get us to do German movies since day one. Okay. Mostly Weimar movies, but... Well, which is honestly where I do know that is, if I have seen usually a Weimar film in general, or... contrarily, something incredibly much more modern. I know you've seen the animated Metropolis, which is an adaptation of the German one. I have, and I've seen a couple of other Weimar movies over the years, and I've seen a couple of clips from Lost movies that were just interesting in general. But for a full movie, especially one set in 1930s, a time period that I have not seen any German film from at all, podcast or no, I really, really enjoyed this. Okay. I like a silent film. It is a genre that I have always enjoyed. I thought this one handled all of the tropes of a silent film that I normally love, with just enough of a talkie that, kept it interesting, kept it going, without it being a little bit too cliche, which the 30s, some of the talkies are a little bit much. Yeah, there's quite a few that I think you would really appreciate. Mostly, Lang's the one I've seen the most of, but yeah, I think it is one that really holds the test of time. Like we talked about multiple times, there are multiple parallels to things that are happening today. Yes. There's a lot of similarities of us wanting to keep up on the news constantly. And I will be the first to admit that an older movie, especially once you get close to that 100-year mark, there's a tendency for them to drag a little bit or be a little bit too rushed, or for you to miss the joke, because the joke is so long gone, you don't know what it is. Exactly. This movie balances all of that surprisingly well. It doesn't necessarily drag at any point, it keeps your interest, it still looks very good, even after being, remastered to the point it is. It is a truly impressive feat for this movie to have lasted almost 100 years and still be as relevant as it is. Yeah. So then, Chris, what's your good, bad, weird scale on this one? I'm gonna go with just good. There's a couple of smaller weird things, because this is a German film from the 30s, but not a ton. And I would argue that you do not need all of the research that we did to enjoy and appreciate this film. You can get by with just knowing 1930s German movie, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's one of those ones where I'm going to put it in the good camp. Yeah, there's some stuff you can talk about. Technically, it's bad X, Y, or Z because it's old, but
sure.
I mean, that's just
that's all movies, I think.
Yeah, I think this one just holds up so much better because one, it's not really a fantasy movie like Die Nibelungen.
No.
Yeah, there's not that cultural reference that you kind of need to know a little bit about Germanic folklore or know a little bit about Siegfried. Like Metropolis, futuristic. I think Metropolis still really holds up to today. I mean, it's still very much a commentary on industrialization, but
we haven't left that yet, so
no. But this one, I definitely think there's a reason it's held up for so long is because
absolutely,
history repeats itself, and we're still human at the end of the day, regardless of how things flow or what powers may be.
Oh, absolutely, and it manages to miss all of the corny tropes that a normal horror movie from the 30s would normally hit with extra screaming or the silly shock values. This one takes such a wildly realistic approach that it is almost scary at times.
Exactly. So then do you recommend it?
I do. As a blanket statement, there's not a lot of movies that I would blanket statement recommend, but this is one of them. I think it's phenomenally good. I think if you're even remotely interested in true crime or a slight, thriller sort of movie, this is a great watch.
Yeah.
It's very entertaining.
No, 100%. I'm in a very highly recommend watching this one. I mean, while I have seen a handful of German movies, I plan to expand even more.
Absolutely.
It's not just because of him. I want to get French films off of my letterbox.
I have so many that you could watch.
I'm not going to watch French movies, Chris. I'm trying to do less French movies this year.
That's fair.
If I watch less than 7 French movies, I'll do better than I did last year.
I'm already well past that number.
Yeah, so I do highly recommend it. But yeah, we're still continuing the child murders a little bit in a different way next week with the child taking command.
What a fun category we've accidentally made. What a joyful, happy group.
Yeah, we'll get a little bit more summary with our child murders.
We will.
Or teen murders.
But they will eventually become what we consider normal, unfortunately.
Yeah, so. But anywho, this has been the Good, the Bad, and the Weird podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Peace. Thank you for stopping by this here town of the good, the bad, and the weird. We appreciate your listenership, and if you want more of our takes in your life, feel free to check us out on social media at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, or TGTBTW for short. As well, if we missed a fact, your favorite part of a movie, or just have a suggestion and want to reach out and say howdy, feel free to email us at tgtbtwpodcast@gmail.com. And feel free to join our Discord at The Good, the Bad, and the Weird Podcast, where we talk about movies, just share random banter here and there. And always, check out our podcasters, streamers, or any other content creator we shout out in our episodes. We really appreciate it. And as always, thank you for listening. Peace!